Hi everybody, this is Gijs again with another review and I hope you are doing well. This time it's a review about a speed-pedelec. It is about the Stromer ST3. And now you might think, didn't you review this one before, Gijs? Well, yes and no, because this version is one with a Pinion 9-speed gearbox and also with ABS. So if you are considering to buy a new speed-pedelec, then you should definitely watch this video. Enjoy! Welcome back to the review of the Stromer ST3 with Pinion gearbox and ABS. But before I start with the review itself, it might be polite to introduce myself to those of you who just tuned into my channel for the very first time. My name is Gijs. I am a Dutch outdoor gear and sometimes gadget and sometimes bike reviewer. And I do my work totally independent, so that means that manufacturers are not paying me for my reviews. That means that I don't earn any money with this. So if you like what I do, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and maybe consider a donation, a very small one, to my Ko-fi account. Everything will be down below in the description. And thank you so much if you do subscribe. Now, let's start with the review of the Stromer ST3. Like I said in my introduction, yes, this is almost the same bike that I reviewed 2 years ago, with one exception, no, two exceptions. This one has got a Pinion gearbox and it has got a anti-locking brake system. Because I think that this bike is a totally different bike, I'm going to do the review all over again. So if you watched the last one or the previous one, then you have to watch this one again, and some things will be the same and some things will be totally different. Now let me walk you through all the little details of this bike. When I review a bike, it's most of the time a trekking bike, and in the case of an e-bike, I also consider a e-bike or a speed-pedelec that it must be capable for shorter biking holidays. And that's the reason why I always test these kind of bikes with a standard equipment of luggage. Yes, 2 big panniers and a tent. In these there is a weight of about 15 kilos together with the tent, and sometimes the sleeping bag, it is about 20 kilograms that I put onto the back of a bike. And that's just for testing, and in this case also because it is a battery one. More weight, of course, it drains the battery a little bit faster. But I put this one just here just for the display to show you that it's there. All the B-roll footage, you will see a lot of it with the panniers when I've been out on a testing ride with this bike. Now let me take these off and then I can show you the bike in full glory. Let me start with the size and the weight. The bike that I'm reviewing here is a size medium. And a size medium, that's the frame of course, that means that it is suitable for persons that are smaller than 1.78 meters. There is also a size L, which is basically between 1.75 and 1.88 meters if you are that tall. And they also do a size XL, which is for everybody who is taller than 1.85 meters. This is the sport frame. There is also a different type of frame. I think it's called the comfort frame, which is a little bit lower, so it is a little bit easier to get on and off the bike. That's just something that you can choose when you go into the online ordering system from Stromer, or when you do this at the dealer, of course. One thing that is a little bit of a pity is that Stromer does not state the weight of their bikes on the website. Yes, they give a lot of other different information, but not the weight. So I put this one on my precise scale and I measured a weight of 32.8 kilograms. And that is of course quite heavy, and I should make the remark that is with the pedals on this one, also with the mounting system for my iPhone, which is a quad lock system, actually superb, and of course with the cage, with not with the bottle but only with the cage That in total was 32.8 kilograms, so in fact it can be a little bit less. What you should be aware of is the fact that this bike is rated for a total weight of 150 kilograms. So if you take the 32.8 and the 150, that means that 117.2 kilos can be added to the bike. That means the person and also the luggage if you use it as a travel bike. Something for you to know. If this is the first time that you watch a review from me with a Stromer bike, then you don't know the history of the company maybe. It is a Swiss brand and it was Thomas Bignelli, if I'm totally correct, who wanted to get commuters out of their cars and onto bikes. And he thought, well, maybe an electrical bike that is fast would help them. So they started designing a Stromer bike in 2007, and a couple of years later, 2009, the first models were ready, and since then they are onto the market. One thing that I did not know, and I found out last week from the Dutch agent of Stromer, that Stromer bikes are best sold in Belgium, and then in the Netherlands, and then in some other countries. And the reason why they are sold so very well in Belgium is because of tax legislation, that when you buy this for your commuting, for home to work and back again, well, it seems to be financially very, very attractive. For so far the history lesson. Now let's start about talking components. The most important thing of any bike is of course the frame, and in the case of the Stromer, the fork and the frame are made out of aluminum. And in my previous review I told you that the welding was done super, but yeah, you can still see the welds. This one is totally different because all the welds are totally smoothened, and it looks like this whole frame and the fork just came out of a mold and like it has been casted. Of course that's not the case, but it is really exceptionally well made. And you can see everything is very, very beefy. For example, the down tube. It is really wide, and that is because this part houses the enormous battery that is needed to provide the energy to the bike. What you will also see is that basically on the rear, the seat stay, if I'm correct, and the chainstay, they are very thick as well. And that is needed because in this case, and I will tell you a little bit more about this later, this is a belt-driven bike. Rear wheel engine, pinion gearbox, huge forces, so this needs to be very, very strong. And also there's a little hole in here, more on this later. The frame has got a few more gimmicks than just the big housing for the battery, because in the top tube there is the ABS system, and more on that later as well. You see the black button here, this is the one that you press if you want to release the battery. Then on the other side a compartment opens and you can take the battery out. For example, if you want to change the battery into another spare battery, or for in this case if you need to repair something. Also more on this later. What you will not see from this position, but I'll put a close-up in here, is that on the top tube there is a display that basically controls everything on the bike. And below here, where my finger is at the moment, there is a nice rubbery button that you press, and that switches on the whole electricity system. The motor is a Sino Drive 2, and it is positioned in the rear wheel, and both wheels they are 27.5 inch in size. The motor, it delivers 820 watts. It goes to a maximum speed of 45 kilometers an hour. For the US it is a little bit different, because the motor there delivers 600 watts and goes to 28 miles per hour. The motor, of course, it gets its energy from the battery that is in that big housing. And about that huge battery that is in there, something funny was going on, because when I got the bike, of course I put the bike on its charging system, just an electrical socket in my shed. It went charging all night, and then in the morning I discovered that I could do 211 kilometers on this battery. And then I thought, if this is a standard Stromer ST3, then it should have a 814 watt hour battery. And that one has a reach of 150 kilometers or 90 miles. So why did this one give me way more? So I opened up the battery compartment and I checked the battery. And in fact, they gave me a Stromer with a 983 watt hour battery. And that gives a reach of 180 kilometers or 110 miles. So this one, it is a little bit more expensive than if you buy this one with the standard battery. The battery that you could also buy in the past as a standard battery for the ST3 was a 500 watt hour battery. But that one is killed. It's not there anymore, but they replaced it with a 680 watt hour battery that will give you a reach of 120 kilometers or 75 miles. The pity is that you cannot buy a ST3 with this cheapest battery as a basic battery in the bike. You can only buy this battery as a spare, just like the 814 watt hour battery and of course the big battery that is in this one. Now, about battery life, I will tell you more about that later. Reviewing this bike brought back a lot of memories on the review that I did 2 years ago. Because also that one I got somewhere in December and I had it in January, and I wrote and I said it in the video that the weather circumstances were not very ideal for AE speed-pedelec because temperatures were very low. Well, this year it was even worse. We've got really cold temperatures and that of course influences battery life. So this is just something you have to take into account. And also we had a lot of rain, and well, the moment that I'm shooting this video now, I've just had a couple of very nice, lovely days. It's been freezing in the morning, but right now it is about 9 degrees and I think it is pretty warm. So if you're seeing this video in summertime, then bear in mind that I made this review in December and January in the Netherlands, where it was pretty darn cold and wet. That's why the bike is also that dirty. Now let me talk you through the operation of basically how the bike works, because it is very simple. The only thing that you need to do is press the button underneath the frame and the system fires up. Yes, now it does it directly, but normally you will have to dial in a pin code. And on this screen you can do basically adjust everything that you like with the bike. The amount of support that the engine gives, the amount of response from basically the pressure that you put onto the pedals, and even if you want to lock it, turn it off, or basically report it that it's missing or that it's been stolen, it is possible because of this system, because there is a SIM card in the bike. So it is connected to my smartphone with the OMNI app, which is a Stromer app. And also when I don't see my bike anymore, I can use the OMNI app to report this bike as stolen. Everything that I can do almost on this screen, I can also do on my smartphone. And it does not really matter if it is a iOS or a Android smartphone. One thing that is also nice about this connection to the internet with the SIM card is the fact that if it needs updating, it will tell you automatically that it needs updating. And yesterday I got a message on the OMNI app on my smartphone and also of course in the system here that this one needs to go for a full service to the dealer. But in this case it's going back to Switzerland after I've finished the review, of course. So in that respect, the OMNI app and of course this electrical system inside, it is very clever. When you've got the bike, it's turned on, you sit on the bike, it is very easy to operate. Just pedal as any normal bike. On the left side of the handlebar there is a plus and a minus button, and that is the amount of support that you're asking basically from the engine. And of course with more support the battery drains faster. On top of the plus and minus button there is also a button for the headlamp. The headlamp, it is a Roxim Z4E Pro, and in low power mode it delivers 600 lumens and in high beam 900 lumens, and both of them, they are very useful. On the rear you will find a light again from Roxim, and it is the R3E. And it's not only very visible from a big distance, but when you apply the brake levers, also the rear brake light of course turns on, and that is a very good safety measure. On the stem you will find a third light, which is a sort of a running light, and in between there is a sort of rubbery thingy which houses a USB port. And yes, you can use this USB port to charge your iPhone or any other device that can be charged by USB. Do I think this is a absolute 100% waterproof construction? No, I don't. Then one little point of criticism for my part, that is that also on the left side of the handlebar there is the horn. And now listen, put the microphone there. I don't get this. I have been biking a lot, and when there is a pedestrian on a cycleway or on the road, or something happens, or the bikes that I want to pass, if I do this, what they call a horn, which in my opinion is some sort of a computer noise, nobody gets it, nobody hears it. The previous model that I tested, it had a really loud horn, and I scared the crap sometimes out of pedestrians or other bikers, which is of course also not maybe needed, but this one, it's just too silly. The beauty about this Stromer ST3 is of course the pinion gearbox, and the pinion gearbox, it is basically this part that is also part of the crank of the bike itself. You can compare it as best, I think, with a manual transmission, for example in a car or on a motorbike, only way smaller and lighter. It's a lot of different gears that are built around two axles. And in this case, this is a Pinion 9-speed, so it has got 9 gears. And if you take all the gears together, then you've got a reach of 568%. And maybe this needs some explanation. The wider this percentage, the more capable the bike is in different circumstances. So that means that, for example, here in the Netherlands, if the wind is blowing full in my face, and maybe even going uphill, that I can still do this without a lot of effort, and with keeping a normal cadence pace on the pedals. But when this same thing happens, but with wind from the back, then I can still maintain a very normal way of operating the pedals, which is comfortable. And the wider this is, most of the time, the more we appreciate this. Now, what is also nice is that the difference between the gears, and that's totally different than with, for example, a derailleur system, that it is a fixed 24.3%. Now, if you need to know more about the Pinion gearbox in details and about reach and how this works, then please read the article that I made for this on my website, and I'll put the link, of course, in the description below. Now, like I said, this is a 9-speed gearbox. Pinion also does a 6, a 12 and a 18-speed gearbox. They've been in production, I think, since 2011. I tested, I think, the first one in 2015 on a mountain bike, because they were originally designed for downhill mountain bikes. And these Pinion gearbox, they've proven to be absolutely bulletproof. And if I had the money to buy a bike with a Pinion gearbox, yes, I would absolutely choose a Pinion gearbox above all the other systems that there are out there. Now, the Pinion gearbox, it's got a front sprocket, and that drives a Gates belt drive, a Gates carbon belt drive, to the rear wheel sprockets. Now, because this is a belt is a closed circle basically, it is not possible to get this around both sprockets if there would not have been an opening in the seat stay. So that's why they made this cutout with a very solid connection to big bolts to make this strong again. So if you need to change your belt, or if sometimes they break, then you just take out this part and then the belt can come out. And if it's broken, you don't need to, but if you want to replace it, that's the way how to do it. And of course, in this case, you need to take the rear carrier away as well. Now, because a belt needs some tension, because otherwise it doesn't work very well, they positioned a nice wheel underneath here. There is a very big sturdy spring on that, and that presses the belt upwards so that the transmission goes very, very smooth. And that is the best thing about this whole combination, about this driveline from Gates, Sino drive engine and Pinion gearbox, that it is very smooth, comfortable, and yes, almost absolutely silent, so you can listen to the birds. One small remark about the Pinion gearbox that I almost forgot is that, different to other bikes, that if you change the gears, you have to take a little bit of the pressure of the pedals, because the gearbox does not like this. And if you take a little bit of pressure off and you shift, then it goes absolutely super silky. I promised to get back on Batterylife, and that is why I changed the bike the other way around. Because now if I press the button on screen to eject the battery, then I can press the button on the other side, and what happens? The battery just flips out. And yes, here it reads 983 watt hour, and it's a beautiful blue battery. What I've noticed, of course, when I ride a speed-pedelec, I want to go somewhere fast in as little time and as fast as possible. Yes, I've been a motorcycle test rider in the beginning of my basically career, so I like speed. So I did a lot of effort to drain this battery as fast as I could. That means riding 45 kilometers an hour and sometimes even a little bit more, and of course in support mode 3. And then I can drain the battery in about 65 to 70 kilometers. And to be honest, I think that is absolutely fine, because if you are commuting, then you take the bike maybe for maximum an hour to work and an hour back. Otherwise you would probably take a car if it's a longer distance. So with that 65-70 kilometers, I think it's absolutely fine. What about what Stromer promises? Because they promise 180 kilometers with this battery. Yes, that's absolutely the case, and if you read the small print, then you will also read that it is measured with 20 to 25 kilometers an hour and in support mode 1. So yes, maybe then you get to 180 kilometers. For me, that's totally rubbish, because in that case I would not buy a speed-pedelec, because a speed-pedelec is there to go faster. Except of course when you're using this bike also as a holiday bike, because there's absolutely no point in driving very fast with luggage, getting to your destination in a very short time, because it is about the traveling that you do. So use support mode 1, support mode 2 sometimes, do less speedy things and enjoy the trip. And then, well, I've discovered 90, 100 kilometers, it's not a problem, and that is for me a very nice day biking with some camping at the end of the day, making dinner, having a decent time for a lunch, visit a castle once in a while. Then absolutely this battery, it is big enough and it is capable enough. Like I said, I measure this in winter time, so in summertime when the temperatures are 20 degrees and a little bit higher, it can be a little bit different. I already said in the beginning that I like to review bikes also with luggage, so with panniers, sleeping bag, tent, cooking stuff. And what I put onto the bike, like I said, it's about 15 kilos and a bit more, sometimes 20 on the back of the bike. And what I do is I don't ride the bike only with this weight, but I also test, of course, how stable the bike is. Now, because of this very big oversized frame and fork, the ride is absolutely stable. But that's also thanks to the, and now I'll have to turn to this side, this very nice ragtime rear luggage carrier. Because this one, it is also very stiff, and it is connected to a very stiff fender, aluminium, 2 layers. So when you put your luggage on here, this is one solid piece together with the bike itself. It does not go anywhere. So even if you're changing corners very, very rapidly, your luggage will stay in place and the bike feels very, very secure. The luggage carrier, the rear carrier, it is rated for 22.5 kilos. So with the panniers, a tent, a sleeping bag, that amount of weight, it is absolutely fine. What is also of course important, since the pinion drive, it is quite a big heavy part, it's way below, very nicely centered, together with the rear engine there and the big battery over here. The whole bike feels very well balanced. Of course, it would be nice if you could put some front fenders on there, or some front carriers on there as well, so you can have a small, some small panniers here as well, but that's just not the case. Now, one very, very funny thing is that if we move over to this side, then you'll see the side stand. And the side stand, it's a pleasure one, and it is rated for 40 kilos. So the bike with almost 33 kilograms, that means that if you want to, well, be totally secure with this side stand, and then you can only add 7 kilograms of panniers onto the bike. I've done way more, and this one has proven to be very, very sturdy. So don't worry about that rating of 40 kilograms. There is one thing that I absolutely don't like about the Stromer ST3, not about this one, not about the previous one, and also not on other Stromers that I've ridden since. And that is the LCD screen in the top tube. Because it is on a position that for me is not visible when I'm riding the bike. When I'm riding a bike with 35 kilometers an hour above, then I need to have my eyes on the road. I need to look forward and not look downwards. And in Dutch cities, speed limits are everywhere. 30 kilometers an hour, 50, which is of course not a problem, sometimes 15. So I need to know what speed I'm doing, and it's just not visible with a screen between my legs. And I don't regard this as safe as well. So what I suggested 2 years ago is that Stromer would make a better OMNI app for my smartphone, so that I have a on-screen display that shows the speed that I'm doing, because that smartphone, yes, this one is visible for me. And what I also said in those days, and what I say again, please don't put the estimated range on this screen, put it in here as well on my iPhone, and combine this with a map and the route that I'm doing, and maybe even with a altitude profile that I'm going to bike, so that I have a prediction if I am going to get to my destination with the battery power that is left, or that if I need to recharge, where I can do this, like for example Tesla does. The riding position on the Stromer ST3 Pinion is a very comfortable one. It's a bit sporty, but still the weight of the rider is very well distributed through the saddle and the handlebar. One thing that surprised me is that when I was setting the bike up to my physical measurements, the seat post had to be extended to full max. Although the bike and the geometry feels very comfortable, during riding I still had the feeling that the seat post, this is a 30 centimeter one, could be a little bit higher for more comfort. A long seat post is of course available from Stromer, so check that. The saddle, by the way, is a Cell Royale Vivo, and I found it very comfortable. The same for the Ergon Custom GA30 single twist shift grips. The handlebar is 690 millimeters wide and has a very sweet, slightly curved shape. The position of the handlebar cannot be changed in vertical position. The stem does not have any adjustments in this matter. On the left side of the handlebar is a mirror that gives excellent view on what's behind. As mentioned before, the frame and fork are made out of aluminum and both are extremely stiff. This is good since it makes the ST3 handle very predictable, but stiffness also has a downside. The bike is pretty sensible to minor humps and bumps in the road. Riding on fresh, smooth tarmac is a dream, but as soon as the tarmac is a bit worn out, or worse, tree roots are under the tarmac, the bike feels pretty hard. On roads that are paved with bricks, and we have a lot of them, riding can be uncomfortable from time to time. A little bit less pressure in the Pirelli Angel ST Urban tires helps. Last but not least, one thing that I did not talk about yet, but what is absolutely a key feature on this ST3, and that is the anti-locking brake system, the ABS. The brakes. On the front and the rear there is a disc brake, and it's a ventilated one, and it has got a diameter of 203 millimeters. On the front it has a caliper with 4 pistons in it. On the rear there are only 2 pistons in it. And on the previous model I already told you that the brakes, they are brakes from hell. Because yes, they are very, very powerful. Which is of course necessary for a bike like this, a heavy bike like this. And also with the luggage, I was in those days very, very happy with the brakes. And now the extra thing, the anti-blocking system. Well, it's a very ingenious system. It is only on the front brake, because most people make braking mistakes with the front caliper. They just brake too hard, the front wheel slips underneath them, and then you're on the floor, which is of course dangerous. Now, that's why they put it onto the front disc. It is a system of tubes and a servo and some measuring devices and a computer. And when I was riding the bike, I tried it of course on slippery roads, on tarmac, on dirt, and yes, it was absolutely fine. It was very, very subtle. It's not like the older car systems that you've got this feeling. It is very, very smooth. But last week I was testing again, and I was testing maximum braking power and trying to get the distance as short as possible. But what happened was, the first run with about 25 kilometers an hour, it went absolutely fine. The bike braked very nicely. Then 35 kilometers an hour, I put on full force on the front brake, and what happened? The rear wheel, it goes poof. It went about half a meter high, and that is of course without luggage. The ABS failed. So I investigated, I rebooted the system, I looked at it, and it did not work anymore. So I contacted Stromer and I made an appointment at the European distribution and also repair center in Den Bosch, which is quite close to me, and that we took the bike apart. And the funny thing is that what we did measure, yes, there was no ABS, it was not getting active. So the first thing that you do is you take a little piece of plastic underneath the top tube, because that's where some electricity is and the unit is that operates basically the ABS. We measured if there was any current reaching this unit, and there was no current reaching this unit. So what then happens is you take out the battery, you take out the battery housing, and then you go deep down below here, and there is one little fuse, a 4 amp fuse, and that one was broken. We replaced it, everything fixed again, and yes, the ABS was back again and everything was fine. But we did not figure out how this happened. It must have been some electricity problem somewhere, maybe something to do with a very powerful headlamp. We just don't know. So I went on biking, and 2 days ago in the morning the ABS failed again. I reset the system and then it was on again, so it was not the fuse. But what does this tell me? Yes, it is a front brake with ABS. But is it absolutely foolproof? No. And I'm pretty harsh on this because we don't know why this is the case. Most cars, most motorbikes, if you put it onto a computer, it tells you absolutely what a problem is. And in this case, I did not get any feedback from Stromer yet on what might the problem be. And it can't be that it's just a blown fuse for what reason whatsoever. It's just not possible. Therefore, this bike is way too expensive. One very cool feature about the braking system of this bike, and I'd like to end the brakes with something positive at least, is the regenerative braking. And I cannot test this in the Netherlands because it is a totally flat country. But if you live in a mountainous area and you're going downhill for a longer period of time, then the engine brakes for you. So you don't have to use the brake levers and the brake pads, but the engine does this. And then it gives back, it generates or regenerates basically energy and puts it of course in the battery. And Stromer claims that this can basically lift the reach of your bike with about 20%. But again, I live in the flat Netherlands, I could not test this. Now you see I turned the bike the other way around again because I think this is the more beautiful side with the drivetrain. Now let's talk a bit about the price of the Stromer ST3. The basic price starts with 7,290 euros, and that is basically with that 800 something battery. If you put in the big battery, then that will cost you another 340 euros. That's on top of basically the battery price of the smaller battery. Then the Pinion gearbox, that will set you back 828 euros. And then the ABS system that failed me, that will set you back another 850 euros. So the bike, as I have been reviewing it, costs 9,308 euros. Is that all? No, it's not. Because if you do feel that what I said, that the bike can be a little bit uncomfortable on, for example, brick roads or gravel roads and tree roots, then of course you can change the aluminum fork for a upside down suspension fork. And that will cost you 990 euros. And also the seat post can be exchanged for a suspension seat post, and that's another 245 euros. Now, in total, then that bike will cost you 10,543 euros, which I think is quite a lot of money. Now, if you want to bring another spare battery, the 983 watt-hour battery will set you back 1,990 euros. Don't say that I did not tell you this. And now it's time to head on to my verdict. How do I rate the Stromer ST3 with Pinion gearbox and anti-blocking brake system? Well, in the first place, I really do like the bike. I like the previous one, but I like this one a bit better. And that has mainly got to do with that excellent Pinion gearbox. Shifting goes very smooth, and you know, the Gates belt drive together with the sprockets, it is very, very silent. That is something that I absolutely love when I'm riding in nature. The reach of 568% is absolutely super. Power delivery also very, very smooth, and the support modes, they are pretty well chosen. The distance, the maximum distance that I can drive with maximum support and going 45 kilometers an hour, it's about 65 to 70 kilometers. And I think that's absolutely fine if you use a bike like this for fast commuting distances. The brakes, they are absolutely super. Yes, I know the ABS failure, but that does not influence the braking capabilities. They are still brakes from hell. Very, very powerful. Would I buy this bike with ABS? No, probably not, because I think it's ridiculously expensive and it's proven to me that it is not flawless. What I don't like also is basically the screen on the top tube. I don't think it's safe. I think that needs to be changed, and it is easy to change if Stromer makes the OMNI app a little bit better. Now, then the price. 9,308 euros. I think it's the most expensive bike that I have ever reviewed, and that is a lot of money for a bike that still has got a few flaws. And no, for that kind of money, this bike should be absolutely perfect. But because of the absolute super Pinion Gates combination, I do rate it a little bit higher than the previous one that I tested. And therefore I rate the Stromer ST3 with Pinion and ABS at 8.8 points out of 10 total. And if you are clever and you know how to bike and brake, skip the ABS. I really hope you like this review and that it is useful to you. And if it is, then please give it a like. And also, please, if you like my way of independent reviewing, subscribe to my YouTube channel, because with more followers I can do more videos. Thank you very much in advance. Making videos, it takes a lot of time, and it also takes, well, quite expensive equipment. My cameras, my tripods, my computer, and I'm not earning anything with this. So please, if you'd like to help me a little bit, please make a small donation on my Ko-fi account. Again, the link is below. And if you think on maybe buying something that I've tested in previous videos, check them out. I did a lot of outdoor gear reviews. Sometimes you will find an affiliate link, and if you buy from that, then I get a small percentage as well. That does not change anything on my independency, because products are sent back to the manufacturer after I review them, or I buy them. Simple as that. That's how you should be as an independent reviewer. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the outdoors. And now, you can probably see it in the image. The sun is almost gone, and I hope I can crank this a little bit in post so that the image looks decent. And I will show you a before and after shot now. And now I'm also going to have something to drink and something to eat, because again, it's been a long time since I did videos and I skipped lunch again and I had too little to drink. Enjoy your day. Ciao, bye, arrivederci. Ow!